It is about that time where when we get into these NFL discussions, we be so deep in our own bubble. You know, we've been talking Browns stuff and what the Browns going to do with Amari Cooper and Deshaun Watson and Jacoby Brissett and whatever else is going to happen with this team. We really haven't looked outside, right? We haven't looked outside to these other teams to see what other teams are doing, right? It's easy to think you're the best team in the NFL when you're only focusing on the upgrades that you're making, but other teams are making upgrades too. Other teams, I hate to say it, made the Super Bowl. Did everything we thought we was going to do. Y'all know who's on today. It's Ace Boogie, my boy from AFC North Talk. Man, how are you doing today?
What's up, Q? I'm doing good, bro. Just taking it in. It's a weird off season for us. It's kind of thrown off my schedule. Starting a new network and stuff like that. So a lot of things that are moving right now, but I'm glad that I was able to stop in and highlight you real quick.
Definitely. By the way, Browns fans, if you want to be an educated fan of the whole division or the whole league, make sure you check out the Cincinnati podcast with Ace Boogie and Zim Hude. They do a great job over there. Real quick, before we get into the serious stuff, bro, I want to know, what was it like to be there when Joe Burrow was a shoestring away from winning the Super Bowl, when you was at there? You was in the building, and they could have won it all. Could you imagine? I mean, that was almost like the Kevin Dyson play, right? Like, that had to be that level of heartbreaking for a Bengal fan sitting up there. I mean, the halftime show was cool, but I mean, you know, just tell me what your thoughts were when you saw Jamar Chase streak open. Did you see it at the time, or did you catch it afterwards? Because sometimes that could just be even more heartbreaking.
Right. For me, it was like taking the whole moment in. It was like, this just can't be real. And like, watching the game in the first half when they didn't get as much pressure, I was like, oh, you know, we have a good chance of winning this game, because obviously that's our Achilles heel, right? And then it seemed like forever in the second half, we just couldn't finish like any drives. Like it just really seemed like in that fourth quarter, we kept getting opportunities. They kept giving us the ball back, and we just couldn't do anything with it. And the funny thing is, when Tyler Boyd dropped that pass, Zim turned and looked at me, and he was like, bro, that was it right there. And I was trying to remain positive, because I feel like sometimes if you speak something negative, you can kind of speak it into existence. So I'm still trying to remain, you know, level-headed, especially after we kind of stopped the Chiefs a few weeks ago with Pat Mahomes in a similar situation. And so I was like, man, we're good. And then obviously you see the flags come out, and I'm like, man, all right, I can't even be mad at that, because, you know, it is what it is. Calls are going to happen and stuff like that. But I was like, we still got a chance. And, you know, the way that drive was going, I was just like, all right, this is perfect. This is going to be like a storybook kind of ending for us. It's going to be worth it. And honestly, when I saw the third down play, it looked like being at the game that he got it. So I didn't think that it was like a 4th and 1 or anything. We were just like, all right, we got that. And then we looked and we were like, hold on, 4th and 1? And the first thing when I watched it and I saw us come out and empty, I was just like, dog, what are we doing? What are we doing? Not empty right now. We can't be really thinking empty, right?
Hold on, wait, one second. Was Samaje Perine was the one holding the ball third and
with Samaje, which was like, bruh, that part, like when I saw that is when I started to get frustrated, because it was like 4th and 1 with this situation. I had talked all year long on Twitter and on my channel about the Bengals not wanting to do like quarterback sneaks on 4th down, because they were so scared of getting Joe Burrow hurt, to the point where I was like, look, if you're that scared, just throw Brandon Allen in there and have him lean over. So the fact that the season ends on this thing that I've been talking about, because everybody was like, Ace, what are you talking about? They don't want Joe to get hurt. It's not worth it. Was that worth it? Was that worth it? In the Super Bowl, was that worth it? So like when it happened, you know, it obviously was frustrating. It really took the air out of everything, because you're at the Super Bowl, you're like taking it all in. We had an amazing time. Like, I didn't really get to tell the full story, but me and Zim essentially snuck down to like the first section. So like where LeBron and everybody was, we like finessed our way in there. So like we were literally walking around Hollywood. We saw your boy Jarvis Landry. Apparently we walked past Drake, but didn't realize it. So it was like, wow. All of this crazy stuff happens, and then you lose the Super Bowl. And then for me, I had to get on a flight to get back to Cincinnati. And the funny thing is, of all people to be behind me in the airport, catching my flight back, going through clear, Kareem Hunt is just like right behind me, wearing his Cleveland shirt on the way back. Like me and him went through clear together, and a lot of people say I favor him, which is funny. But it was a tough pill to swallow, and it was just like, man, like we were literally, it felt like that close to a Super Bowl, but didn't capitalize on it. So at first, obviously, it was like, man, like you're happy, it's a super high, and then it's a super low when that play happens at the end.
Yeah, I mean, I give you a lot of guff about it, but I just think it's just kind of funny there. But honestly, come on, man. Like, you didn't think you was ending this year at the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? My real question is, when they catch you by surprise like that to go to the Super Bowl, what you going to do when they go back? Because that costs a lot of bread to get back down there. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if that could become a yearly expenditure of yours. Like, I'm pretty sure there's some Buffalo Bills fans in the 90s who went broke trying to watch them Bills win the damn Super Bowl one time. Like, what you gonna do when they go back? You going back?
So for me, I would say that I would go back. I actually was lucky because what happened with me was I actually bet when I saw the playoffs come out, and Zim will tell you this, like I really haven't told, I think anybody, well, no one would believe me now, but when the playoff path came out and I looked at it and I was like, all right, we got to play Derek Carr, Ryan Tannehill, and then all we got to do is beat either the Bills or the Chiefs. So for me, I never thought that the Bengals were like, to me, it wasn't until we beat the Chiefs week 17. I was like, if we beat this team, then I know that we can go to the Super Bowl. We can win it. So when that happened and that path came out, I immediately called Zim and I was like, bro, we're going to the Super Bowl. And he was like, what do you mean? Like, we still got to get, I said, we're going through to the Super Bowl because we have the easiest path out of anybody. Because if you looked at the other side, they had to play the Patriots, they had to play the Bills and the Chiefs. They were all on that side together. So when I saw that and I was like, Ryan Tannehill, oh, all right, bet. So like for me, when I think it was week 18, I made a bet. So I said that the Bengals would win, I think the AFC, which would mean that they were going to the Super Bowl. And then I think I said, I did another bet, but whatever it was, it essentially paid for my ticket to go to the Super Bowl. So the bet that I made, which was like $200 before the playoffs started, netted me like 5 G's for us to be able to go to the Super Bowl. And then luckily we were able to get in contact with somebody from the Bengals front office to pay the retail price for the tickets. So it was crazy at first because you already remember like tickets were like 10, 15,000. The craziest part was day of, bro. And I kind of was salty. Like the same price that I paid, like people were paying that for like bottom first row, like bowl tickets. So one thing to keep in mind is if your team ever goes to the Super Bowl, wait until like the day of or something like that, because somebody's going to be getting those tickets off for like the low. So for me, like if they do go back, I would do the same thing. Like I would probably make my bet ahead of the playoffs. Ahead of the playoffs, make my little odds because the odds are always going to be crazy, right? And then I would try to go again, or since we got the Cincinnati network, try to get those media credentials to get on the field. Because that's another story. Me and Zim almost snuck down like we were media people. Like we almost got down there. We actually got down to the field and we were walking around with like some journalists and we were walking to the right and only one guy caught us, but that guy caught us. And then we went up to like the suite where LeBron and them were, which normal people weren't supposed to be there either. But yeah, I would definitely find a way back because I tell you what, bro, that Super Bowl experience is something else. Is dope. I think even if you don't go to the game, like how they have the NFL experience, that part of it is dope. So I highly recommend, like if Cleveland goes to the Super Bowl, that you got to do what you got to do, man. I mean, it's your team in the Super Bowl. You got to make it happen. Find a way.
Look, man, I don't gamble like you and Tony. So the only way I'm going to get my butt to the Super Bowl if that thing is in where I'm at, which I'm not going to say publicly on YouTube right now. But yeah, let's actually talk about that because we talk about Super Bowl. I mean, I feel like 3 teams have Super Bowl hopes this year, or at least praying that they can get there when it comes to Baltimore, right? Because they feel like they have already wasted that window with Lamar without capitalizing on his rookie deal. And then you look at Cleveland, obviously they have made moves. The Cincinnati Bengals have made some serious moves. Before we get into what the Bengals have done, what do you think is the feeling like obviously like Bengal fans are going to be confident, right? They have no reason to be afraid of any team. But the Browns adding Watson, upgrading that quarterback position when for the last 3 years, I mean, every time we talked about the Browns roster, the main talking point has been but Baker Mayfield, right? That's been the question mark for the last 3 years. It's not been about anything else. It's been, can Baker Mayfield be good enough to take this team here? Now that he's out the equation and the quarterback that you have significantly less on-field questions about, and Deshaun Watson is in there. What's the feeling like in Cincinnati? Like, is it kind of a frustrating feeling, like the year that you feel like you finally took over, the Browns make a serious move, or is it like bring it on kind of a deal?
No, I think it's like, I think when you have a quarterback, there's a mutual respect. Like, you already know that you respect Lamar. You already know that you respect Deshaun Watson. It's like, we're going to be fighting and we're going to have to, do whatever we can to make a counter move to that. Like, so when the Deshaun Watson thing happened, they just knew that they had to make another big splash. And I think there's just a mutual respect there. Like, that, whether it's going to be the Chiefs, the Bills, the Browns now, the Ravens, us, like, you just know that you're going to have to duke it out with those teams. And I think, like, you just go into it more confident when you're going against, when you got the quarterback advantage. And I always talk about that. Like, it was never that I hated Baker. That's just generally how I look at football, especially it's not like an afraid thing, but it's like, okay, we can really take them serious versus us looking at Pittsburgh like, all right, Mr. Trubisky, like, we're not taking that serious. So I think it's like, we look at the AFC North, we look in the AFC, and we're just like, this thing is loaded. If you don't get a quarterback, like, it might be over for you. Like, I'm looking at the Tennessee Titans. I don't know if they're going to make it back with Ryan Tannehill at the quarterback position, especially with these 3 quarterbacks in the North that we have. So I think when you look at it from that perspective, obviously we are division rivals, but I'm glad that the Browns realized, like, it was time to upgrade the quarterback position, because you never want to waste any of your good players' windows.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, right, we make the jokes about the Browns beating the Bengals over the last few years, and especially like the Joe Burrow has never beaten the Cleveland Browns thing. One of the things that played a big factor in that, yes, Baker Mayfield did have some good games. Some of those were like extraordinarily good games. A 5-touchdown game was one of them. But also another thing that played a factor was the Browns' actual best player, and still their best player, in Myles Garrett. He's been a problem for Cincinnati, especially. I mean, he has gotten behind. Like, I don't know how tired Joe Burrow has to be of 95, because he has hit him a good amount of times and pretty hard. I mean, I think he has like at least 3 forced fumbles on Joe Burrow. And for the Bengals, I felt like if you're worried about the Browns, right, that's got to be concern number one. Like, yes, Watson, that offense, it's going to be a big concern, but Myles Garrett attacking our franchise quarterback, that's got to be the most pressing one when you have to go in a division that has Myles Garrett, has TJ Watt. The Ravens blitz all the time, right? There is no safety for a quarterback if you don't have a great wall in front of him. And, talk to us about what the Bengals have done to fix that one, because that's, I think, been the mismatch that the Browns have had that has given the Browns ultimately the edge over the Bengals the last couple of times they played them when Joe Burrow has been there. Was, we got Myles Garrett. Y'all had no answer to that.
It was obvious that, offensive line was our Achilles heel going into the playoffs. And it's funny because when you get into these things with spaces and you're meeting other teams like the Chiefs and the Titans, a lot of their fans were talking trash, like, you guys don't see pressure and this and that. And I'm like, dude, we play in a division with Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. And then when you look at the schedule of games last year, you'll notice like every premier, pass rusher was on that list, whether it was the Bosa brothers, like, we had to face them all. And so we were able to get to the Super Bowl, but it was clear that in order for us to really maximize this thing and to be able to win a Super Bowl, you had to fix the line. I mean, the line has been bad, honestly, since probably 2015. So this has been a situation that they've been trying to resolve for a while. They tried draft picks. They tried trading for Cordy Glenn. They tried all of these different approaches, which they don't get real credit for, but they've tried to do it so many different ways, and they just missed on draft picks. They had, the issue with the coach. And so they had to address it, especially with not only Myles Garrett, but you got TJ Watt. The Ravens, yes, they blitz, but I think the way that we kind of attacked them back this year, we kind of adjusted to that. Not disrespecting them, but it's not the same level as like a Myles Garrett or, a Jadeveon Clowney or a TJ Watt. But these are the guys that you're going to go up against. And so I'm excited because my main priority after year one of Joe Burrow was protecting him, because I knew that if we gave this man any type of protection, that he would start to tear teams up. And so the fact that they went at that heavy this offseason, I think was something that I was proud of and that I was happy for. We just talked to, I believe, Steven Radishovich, and he's in the front office for the Bengals. And he said one of the reasons that they didn't address it so heavy in free agency last year was that they really just didn't like the free agents available. And they felt like this offseason that they could really do that. And especially once they zeroed in on Lyle Collins, that was huge. But it definitely starts up in the trenches, and you have to protect your quarterback from a Myles Garrett because, as you said, I remember one of those forced fumbles that really changed the outcome of that game, I think week 2 last year. And those are things that can happen that can change games. And so, yeah, the trenches are definitely a factor. And yes, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, and all of the guys, Aaron Donald, all of those guys kind of forced the Bengals' hand to say, okay, we got to do something more this offseason to protect Joe if we want to keep this guy upright.
Definitely. Now, one of the biggest surprises last year was the Bengals defense, right? They were able to cobble together a group that some people say was at least 15. I would say they were around hovering at like 8 to 10 range all year, right? They didn't have many star players or any players that you go and freak out about because they're on your defensive game plan or anything, but they just played well. It was almost like Bill Belichickian in that way, where Bill Belichick, he will have just dudes, like recycled dudes that he's had that stunk other places, and then he just knows exactly what to do with them, exactly where to put them, and he can just shift coverages enough and be shifty enough on that side of the ball to where it becomes a very formidable defense to go up against, despite the fact that they don't have any of those, game-breaking type players. And that's kind of what the Bengals did last year. There are some people who are kind of predicting the Bengals to take a fall this year just because they don't trust that defensive performance is going to be there again. For somebody who's close to the team, covers the team, what do you think the Bengals are going to look like defensively? Do you think they're going to be better this year than last year? What have they done? And what do you feel about the ability to continue what they did last year, since it was so much based on just chemistry and how well they were playing?
I think that this unit will be better. And the reason why is because a lot of people didn't realize it unless you were paying close attention to the team. And obviously me and you, we do that on YouTube throughout the offseason. And I remember doing a cut the tape on this kid named Joseph Osai, right? And I was like, man, this dude's motor is crazy. But, I'm expecting this guy to possibly take off in his sophomore campaign, right? And so I actually go down to the Bengals' first preseason game, which was against the Super Bowl winning Tom Brady Buccaneers, and they let the starters play in the first I think couple of plays, right? And as soon as I get there, like everybody, I'm hearing the crowd going crazy because one of my friends is a Bucs fan, and we're trying to find our seat. And I'm like, man, what's going on? And this Joseph Asai kid was just beating Tristan Wirfs like a rag doll. It was insane to watch, and I was like, dog, like, is this dude really about to like take off this season? And they left him in to get some more reps, and then he ends up tearing his knee, right? And so Osai, after that game, everybody was so excited to see what he could bring, because this was a pass rush from the Bengals that I talked about, only had 17 sacks the season prior, and they looked completely different. Like Hendrickson was getting home even as early as that preseason game. And I think now that they get Joseph Asai back, that is going to take the pass rush, I think, to a whole other level. If they bring, well, obviously he'll be back in this season. So I think adding him to that D-line is going to make us a lot better than we were last year, because towards the end of the season with injuries and stuff like that, the depth just wasn't there from the pass rushing position. After you had Trey Henderson get banged up, and after you had Sam Hubbard, you really didn't have much outside of Cam Sample and stuff like that. And then we lost Larry Ogunjobi. That was really major as far as that interior rusher. And so I think from the defensive line standpoint, they're going to come back pretty strong because DJ Reader had an elite year last year. BJ Hill, a guy that they traded for Billy Price, really was like a steal, and is probably going to step up in his role this season. Logan Wilson, Jermaine Pratt, and the linebackers are solid. They're, at one point I thought that was a weakness of the defense, but they really came together in their sophomore years. And then we lost Akeem Davis-Gaither, who will get back. And so, looking at it, I actually think this unit could only get better, especially when you talk about the secondary as well. Obviously, they bring back Jesse Bates, who had a down year before the playoffs. Once the playoffs started, he seemed to kind of turn it on. I don't know if that was contract related or what. Then you have Von Bell, who played well. Cheeto, who I was a huge fan of early on in the process. So, like, for me, a lot of Bengals fans initially were not high on Cheeto. They weren't high on Trey Hendrickson. I was really the only one because I looked at the film and I talked to, people that are close to the teams to figure it out. So I watched Trey Hendrickson, so I knew that he would be better than people expected. And I actually talked to our man Vach Lombardi about Cheeto, and he gave me a breakdown on Cheeto. And so Cheeto was honestly one of the biggest steals for us in free agency. He was super underrated. Like, he honestly played like a shutdown corner last season. But then the weakness, I feel like, and I say quote unquote weakness, is kind of that second corner position, right? But the thing with Eli Apple was, we already know that Eli Apple coming into this league was not the greatest, right? But he played pretty damn good for them, or pretty damn solid for them last year. Like, it wasn't noticeable, like, for me, where when we used to have, a Dre Kirkpatrick that teams just picked on, it wasn't like that. And so I think he kind of found a good role, the way that they used him. And then they brought in Flowers, who they just brought back as well. And those guys really found their niche, even though it didn't work out other places. And so I think the fact that they will add more to this defense, I think that you'll see them add a corner in the draft, maybe even a safety in the draft as well. But I think that the defense is just going to get better. I'm not saying that they're going to be like top 3 or anything like that, but they'll still be, I think, a top 10 to top 12 defense. And I think the pass rush, if anything upgrades, that pass rush will be better. And I think the number one thing really that got better with them was the run defense, because the year prior, everybody was running all over them. And I feel like that was kind of a key with them having DJ Reader back healthy. And so as long as obviously they stay healthy, you got to knock on wood. No one's going to stay 100% healthy. But if they do, I think that they'll just honestly get better. And I think another part of that was when you're going through a transition of one, staff to the next, you have to give those guys adequate time to get guys that fit their scheme and system. And I think that these guys just fit it better than Geno Atkins did, than Carlos Dunlap did, than William Jackson III did. And now that Lou has his guys, they just know what to do. And so, they did a lot of multiple stuff. They changed a lot of things up. But I think that I'm confident that they'll at least be as solid as they were last year, this year.
Definitely. All right. So we're at this point. The AFC North and the AFC West and the NFC West and all these other, like, there seems to be like 3 powerhouse divisions in football. I want your prediction right now. How many wins will it take at minimum to win the division, and how many wins do you think it's going to take to just make the wild card, given that there are like 9 good teams this year in the AFC alone?
Ooh, that's a tough one, because at first you kind of think like, oh, it's going to take like 13 wins or something like that, and then you realize everybody's playing each other. And so I would probably say that you have to at least get 10 to 11 wins to win the division, because we're going to beat up on each other. We're going to have to play each other in the conference. So I think you need at least 10 to 11 to make the playoffs in the AFC. I think you're going to need around like 9, at least 9. Like, there's no way that you're going to be able to get in without 9. Like, you don't want to be like the Dolphins last year on the outside looking in. And I think you at least need 9. I can't see it being less than 9. You might even need 10, and I might have to bump the division up to 11, but there's going to be a lot of tiebreakers. It's going to be a lot of weird and crazy stuff because we went through it last season. But I think as long as you do that, you get about like 10 wins. I think books you at least 9 out of 10 wins is going to book you a shot at the party. And I think you got to get like maybe 10, maybe 11 to get the division.
Now, this all sounds like the division's going to be chaos, the wild card going to be chaos, and you know what's the best place to watch chaos go down? YouTube.com/AFC North Talk, where it's not just me, it's not just Ace, it's also Sonny, and it's also Tony. 4 fan bases represented on one show every week. Twice a week now, right? Twice a week during the football season, not during the off season because we got other stuff to do. But during the football season, we'll give you 2 shows a week, a preview and a review. And the memes get crazy, the jokes get crazy, but there's also some good football analysis in between there. We have a lot of fun on that show. So if you're interested in not just keeping up with your squad, but keeping an eye on the competition, whoever you feel like the competition might be, or if you just want to hear 4 dudes who have pretty good chemistry, I'd like to think so, just talk about football and other things together, make sure you check out AFC North Talk on YouTube. You're already on YouTube. Just jump on here, AFC North Talk in your search bar in another tab. Don't cheat on me. I see you. Yeah, don't cheat on me. And hit that subscribe button, notification bell. After you hit the subscribe button and notification bell on Cincinnati's channel, let them know where the new orange and black stuff is going down, man.
Yes, we're actually in the podcast store under the name Cincinnati. So check us out on there. It's going to be wherever you get any kind of podcast or anything like that. And then, of course, you can find us on YouTube with the channel name Cincinnati. So just be able to check us out on any platforms. As long as you put in Cincinnati Podcast, I'm sure our YouTube channel and our podcast will come up, and we appreciate that support. And we appreciate, just keeping it fresh with the division, talking about all of these things, because now that Zim has been introduced to AFC North Talk and these spaces and things like that, it's always interesting to hear the perspective from members of the division, because the last thing that you want to hear is what your own fan base is telling you, like, we're going to sugarcoat everything, but it's not until you get that insight from the rest of the fan bases where you actually get to hear it. So definitely join AFC North Talk, hit that subscribe button, and definitely check out Cincinnati if you want more of a deep dive into what the Bengals are doing.
Definitely. Look, if you're a Browns fan, we got to pay attention to that other team in Ohio now. I mean, like, they still the other team in Ohio because they ain't beating us yet, with their new quarterback. Now, we got a new quarterback, too, but until Joe Burrow beats us, they still the other team in Ohio. I'm just saying, we'll see what happens with that crowd.
The one thing that I did say, though, was that the Battle of Ohio was going to become the premier matchup in the division. And I think I said that, week 2 last year when we had that amazing game. I think it was like somewhat of a primetime game. It was just an exciting game to watch. Yeah. Right, exactly. And LeBron was tweeting about it. I'm like, look, the Battle of Ohio, like with Ben being on his way out, and now we done added Watson to this thing too. Like, the Battle of Ohio is going to be must-see TV in the marquee matchup for the AFC North for possibly the next decade.
It's a whole lot of orange in your future,
yes.
AFC North fans. It's a whole lot of orange. Not a lot of purple. Definitely not a lot of
Definitely not a lot of yellow. Definitely not a lot of black and yellow.
They call it gold over there, but we know what yellow look like, right? Like, come on. I know they try to play us. Oh, it's gold. No, it's not. That's not gold. That's mustard yellow. It's ugly mustard ass yellow. So, I had to slide some Steelers slander in there.
Got to.
But definitely, Ohio football is back in the biggest way in Ohio. The spotlight should be there. We'll get a Sunday night football game. Blame Mike Florio, Bengal fans, because that's who's in charge of it. But, yep. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.